What's up, everybody? My name is GN. Welcome to FMA Source. And I just want to say first and foremost that I love the Filipino martial arts and I am inspired by the growing number of practitioners out there sharing their thoughts and ideas about FMA. Now, every morning I start with a cup of coffee. I sit down in front of my laptop. I stare out into the beautiful outdoors and I think about FMA. Now, a lot of days, my thinking will terminate or culminate into some sort of a written format. Sometimes that's an essay, sometimes it's an article, sometimes it's a one-liner, sometimes it's one question. More often than not, these inspirations are fueled by FMA community members, and today it was inspired by Rene Susim, who is an FMA instructor, and he likes to share a lot of his thoughts, a lot of his ideas publicly out there. So kudos to him. This entire post is dedicated to you and your students. Thank you very much for inspiring thought. Now, how I would like to present these videos, you're pretty much going to see me typing. I know that's very boring, but for me to be able to do this every day, I have to do it efficiently. So as I type this out, what I'll do at the end is I will record a narration and I will marry the two. So the visuals will just be me typing. Listen to the words very carefully. Always leave a comment. Let me know what you think, if I've crossed any lines, if there are items that you agree with, and if there are items you disagree with, or if there are items that you wish for me to expand on, I can even make a whole new video for that. So without further ado, today's post is inspired by Rene Susim from FMA Discussion, and it is all about FMA institutional inertia relating to empty hand fighting. So here we go. In weapons fighting, any weapons fighting, including firearms, archery, fencing, and FMA, including being in a cockpit of a jet fighter plane or wielding a spear or nunchucks, in any weapons-based fighting, the weapon will 100% dictate the stance, or for a more appropriate term, the fighting platform, which includes structure, base, body angling, and how these things adjust while maneuvering. So why do weapons fighters fight in a bladed stance that is typically much more pronounced than non-weapons fighting? You may believe that we should adopt the same structures when we no longer have weapons under our control. Certainly, it's what many Filipino martial arts instructors believe and teach. And owing to the great relationship between FMA and JKD, this, quote, tradition has continued unchecked by many. But this makes no sense. And it is precisely why so many FMA practitioners have very poor fundamental empty hand striking capabilities. Most especially in battlefield formations, the need to adopt a bladed stance is critical as it presents a smaller target. This is critical for one reason. The trajectory of ballistic weaponry is linear. Bullets, arrows, spears, and even thrusts from swords, all are linear. The exception becomes clear once armor is introduced. Combat flight maneuvering are dictated by the area of the aircraft bearing the most significant protective armor, or areas which are less vulnerable to damage. Carbine shooting adopt square stances because the forward-facing armor covers more area this way, and that blading a stance actually exposes vital targets. Boxers adjust foot placement so it can travel efficiently in a linear fashion, but their upper bodies square up. For comparison, look at JKD fighters, bladed. When we are empty hands, not only do strikes come from linear trajectories, but they have the ability to track and adapt to their targets within a much shorter flight path. We can grab, push, and pull. We can cause disbalance from foot sweeps. And most importantly, we have hooking strikes and roundhouse kicks with parabolic or curved trajectories. From a static observation, I want you to imagine something. You can see that blading our stance presents a smaller target for jabs, but a much bigger target for hooks. This is the simplest way I can illustrate this point. The majority of successful fighters in any combat sport, be it boxing, sambo, MMA, judo, jiu-jitsu, or wrestling, will adopt a more square stance. Now, there will always be notable exceptions, that's for sure. Just as kendo fighters can be the exception for weapons fighters adopting a square stance. But how well would a kendo fighter really do against a well-trained spearman? In a one-on-one match, kendo dudes would get smoked by trained spearmen, just like a JKD fighter will get smoked by a Western boxer. And this is probably why the best JKD fighters are also boxers. So yes, 100%, the reason that the weapon will dictate the stance is because, well, it needs to. But in the absence of weapons, the smarter option would be to adjust appropriately. The idea of muscle memory is a fallacy anyway. Muscles have no memory. Our brains are the most powerful tools ever in existence, and they are so much more powerful than some martial arts theories would have us believe. To be honest, FMA instructors have become lazy with infusing to their students that while some skills transfer, they don't all transfer. And even when they do, they require significant modification. I know it's easier to just say it all transfers, but that's not only lazy, it's completely wrong. And the truth is that this idea of transferability of skills between weapons and empty hand fighting is a wonderful concept, but it is just that. It is a concept. Concepts must adjust and adopt or adapt to context, environment, and circumstance. The concept of combat speed, for example, is relative to ground surface conditions, for one, and many adjustments are made to execute combat speed on slippery, unstable surfaces, in the same way that our stance must adopt once we lose our weapons. So for all you Salat guys out there who propose super low stances for all sorts of fighting conditions, you're wrong about that too. Remember where your style was developed, on mud and sand and uneven terrain. Again, the better Silat instructors get this. They maintain the spirit of the art while making adjustments for conditions that the original may not have accounted for. The best FMA instructors do exactly the same thing. So give this a thought and a bit of reflection. It rocked my world when I first heard it, and the more I began to explore it, I had to undergo the difficult process of letting go things I once believed to be true, or simply accepted, because it was what appeared to be the norm. Remember that there will always be exceptions to the rule. There's a YouTube link that proves everything wrong and everything right. One of the most successful free throwers in professional basketball with one of the highest career averages is Rick Barry, who is 7th NBA all-time, 1st ABA with a lifetime average of about 89%. And he did it with a granny shot underhanded throw, which according to physics is actually the most effective way to shoot free throws. So while it may not be the most adopted, science and logic backs it up. And while there are infinitely more variables to account for in fighting than a free throw, who knows how much better you'll be at fighting if you put the time in doing what Rick Barry did. Look at the science and logic and then put in the work. What's stopping this from happening? Well, the same reason why practically no one else shoots free throws underhanded, and the same reason some folks insist on keeping everything of the old and adopting nothing of the new. It's called institutional or bureaucratic inertia. If you look it up on Wikipedia, it will say that bureaucratic inertia is the supposed inevitable tendency of bureaucratic organizations to perpetuate the established procedures and modes even if they are counterproductive and or diametrically opposed to established organizational goals. Boxing is the greatest tool we have as FMA practitioners to break institutional inertia relating to empty hand fighting. And guess what? Some of the greatest, and I mean the greatest, escrimadors ever in our near history were all boxers. Let's not lose that spirit just because it's difficult. They paved the way for us. Let us not ignore it. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for the consideration. Thank you for your subscription. And I look forward to reading your comments down below. My name is Gian. Thank you guys very much. And I hope you stay tuned for the next one.